What the fuck, dude? Okay, here we go. We'll start at the shit. Okay, let's start up here. Skins, all this stuff. Don't care. I'm not gonna go over it. We'll start with map changes. Should I blow this up? How do I? First, let's F11 it. That's too big. Is that good? Yeah, we'll do this. Okay, here we go. Alright, chat, this is going to take a while. I'm not going to go over everything, because we just watched the patch notes. I'm just going to give you actual analysis and what the shit means, so that if you're like everybody right now, and you're like, holy crap, they added, removed, changed so much, how am I even going to make sense of it? Like, what's even good? What is this going to look like? All that crap, that's what the point of this is. This is on the Reddit, but I will give you a link really quick. This is what I'm looking at. And I'm going to full screen that again. Okay, so let's go over the map changes. This right here, they just rounded out a couple of the walls so that you couldn't see a camp from mid lane. That's basically all that means. This is the big change. So, pretty much, this means that you're now going to pick lane pressure gods a lot more. The laning phase will mean more because now you don't have these level 1 invade fights where you're starting the game off walking up to their speed and fighting. Now you're going to walk in the lane, you're going to try to get lane pressure, poke the other person out, do whatever, out clear them, and then you can invade, walk in their jungle, do all that stuff. So early game clear is more important on the wave, and early game fighting is a little less important in terms of grouping up and invading and going for a kill on their speed buff. Something like that. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that you would really want to see from this. I don't think so. I think basically the overall theme here is that because that a new buff was added, which we'll get into, we'll go over this. Is it over here? Should be right over here. Right? Cyclops Rogue. So, new purple aura buff that provides protection reduction against enemies, 55 unit range, blah blah. I would expect this to be a support buff. This will go on the support players. That means that if you're a support, I'm not quite sure about this because there is still a lot of, because the map didn't change, there's still so much you can get out of mid pressure because all the camps are around mid lane. You got mid harpies, elementals, speed, red, you know, all that stuff is so close to mid. If you're a support, you may still want to go mid, but at least for the start of the game, because this is a buff that you want to pick up, I would expect for the support to stay in the lane with the hunter. You'll push the first wave or two, you'll get this buff, and then you'll probably go elsewhere. If I had to guess, it doesn't seem like there's any incentive to actually continue laning in duo lane, but starting there seems to make sense. That's a solo buff. That's on the duo side, you dummy. So I don't know about that. But can I repost the link? Someone in chat repost this link if they can. Because I don't want to keep taking it off full screen and stuff. So I think the start you'll see is support ADC in duo lane. You'll push the wave, do the buff as soon as you can. Support will rotate out. That's if you have pressure. If you don't have pressure, this is all just a guess, by the way. This could be completely wrong. But just to try to give people some ideas or help make sense of it, this is what I think. Maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. If you don't have pressure in the lane, maybe you want to dodge the lane. Maybe you do your buff right away, and then you let the wave go into your tower, so you lose a little bit of gold. Maybe if the other team sees that, they run up to contest your buff. Or no, they can't do the buff right away, 30 seconds, duh. I mean, after the first wave, you clear it, and then you let the next one go into tower. Okay, whatever. Fuck off. This is a lot of stuff. I'm getting pissed. The Oracle Harpies and Portal Demon. So Portal Demon doesn't spawn until 10 minutes. This is an interesting mechanic. I'll go over this one more, because I think it has a little more gameplay implications. So basically, it's a new jungle boss, I would expect. I don't know how it interacts, if it actually does count as a jungle boss, but it's going to be a big contested objective. It gives you a portal from your base to Fire Giant. I don't know how to value this, so basically, You could view this as snowball and anti-snowball. The problem is, if you're ahead and you get this buff, you can swarm the map and cause so many more fights to start more stuff so much more often. It also allows you to win just, I guess, even fights. So if you have this portal up and your team goes 1-for-1 and each team takes a bunch of damage and then everybody backs, then the 4 players who have the portal get back on the map quicker, which means if you have a big 1-for-1 brawl where you have a big team fight and one person on each team dies, the team that has the portal just kind of instantly wins the exchange. Stuff like that can lead to snowball. It also puts you in a position where if, say you're a team that's in the lead and you just siege like towers and you just did Gold Fury, and then you back, the other team could take this portal thing and then they have the advantage contesting Fire Giant, which would most likely be your next objective. So it has a lot of cool like gameplay elements that it could add. I don't really know if it's going to be a healthy thing or a detrimental thing to the game. There are obvious negatives that it could have, such as say you're ahead like 5,000 gold or something and the game is stalemated and you have to force a Fire Giant and you like start a fight, you poke a bunch of people out, but you can't do fire even if you get them all really low because they can just portal back into fire and then it's like in favor for them because they've healed up and you haven't. Stuff like that can be super, super awkward. So I don't know how to value that. It also means that if you have this portal active, when Fire Giant's up, you instantly win the ward battle because you could ward back, instantly portal back, ward again, blah, blah, blah. Waves meet in solo at like 40 seconds. Now they meet at like 20. So I don't think that should be true. I'm pretty sure they meet a lot sooner than that. The Oracle Harpies are also a new mechanic similar to the Elementals last season. Difference is they have an objective, they give you vision that can't be countered. That's just a good change. It allows duo lane pressure to mean something. You can translate that into ward vision on gold just directly. That can't be countered, so it's actually something that is really valuable, I would assume. So good change. Gold Fury change, scaling down the gold, also a good change. This whole map change thing, it seems to promote early game brawling. So I would expect gods with a good early clear and good early fighting to be really viable, at least for the start. And that helps because now that those teams will already start snowballing, the Gold Fury doesn't let them snowball even more, which is good. Also, thank you Feng Mumu for the sub. I appreciate it. Thank you for coming back. I'm glad you enjoyed the stream. Holy crap. I keep muting my mic and pausing because I have to cough, guys. Sorry. I'm like feeling a little under the weather. Updated visual effects, blah blah blah. I'm not going to go over all this stuff. T-screen, whatever, ranked updates, pretty cool. You can read all this stuff when you're in. I'm just going to talk about actual gameplay. Let's go to items. So, the rituals are super interesting, and rituals and Chalice specifically have a really cool interaction with each other, which I'll get onto in a second. But the rituals are basically, say an impactful team fight's coming up. You're about to contest a Gold Fury, a Fire Giant, or maybe you're just sieging a tower, something like that. You can buy this ritual instead of maybe buying an item, and it's basically a gamble, which is you're going to buy this ritual, you're going to hope it wins you the fight, and if you don't win the fight, then not only did you lose the fight and whatever objective came after, but you basically threw 750 gold in the drain. Super high risk, super high reward, just in the nature of them. So you have Rallying Ritual, which is old teleport to God, so you charge your TP and you teleport to them. The different mechanic with this is if it gets interrupted, you lose the ritual, so it's 750 gold wasted. This could be good for split pushing implications, or it could be good, say, you get Fire Giant, and maybe you only have 2 people alive, like, say it was a really sloppy team fight, you only have 2 people alive, you have Fire Giant, and then you want to siege a tower, but somebody isn't healthy enough to tank, maybe you could buy this to go get a Phoenix, something like that. Really, like, it's really niche situational, I think, but I don't know, it could be good. It's hard to value. All these rituals are just so situational, except for one of them, and are so risky, except for one of them again, that you don't know how much they'll be picked up. One of these that are risky are the old combat blink. This would be a good ritual. Say you're in a late game team fight as a mage, right? Say your beads and your Aegis are down. and you're about to have a big team fight that you can't avoid contesting, this flickering ritual will be good because it could possibly prevent you from getting killed in that fight, which, you know, obviously has huge value in itself, so something to keep in mind there. You could also use it as a support, say you're getting engaged on all game. Maybe you get engaged on, you bait a lot of abilities on yourself, then you blink, use the flickering ritual in combat, and then you counter engage on their team. That could be very strong. So a lot of creative things you can do with this. A pro player, describe Season 4 in one word, please. And good luck with that. Revealing Ritual shows you all enemy gods on the map and reveals wards with you, or wards within 70 units of the user. Kind of an interesting one. I think the obvious things here are you pop this and then you chain assault through a wall to wherever people are or whoever is the most separated, and you just insta-kill them. That's kind of ridiculous. The ward application is kind of just an added perk. This ritual, for you to buy it, it's only going to be good if the enemy gods on the map is a thing, because, you know, de-warding isn't worth 750 gold, right? You would just back and get something else. You would get actual sentries, so I don't see that. Pretty much only good if the god reveal on the map is good, and like I said, that could be good with Janus. It could be good with, maybe if you're looking to, like, thaw thought through a wall or some crap like that. I'm not sure. It's really hard to value that. I think it's a little underwhelming, I would say. Or I'll like sum up the rituals after this one. Frenzied Ritual is absolutely insane. This, I expected to see nerfs. 750 gold for 20% attack speed and 25% damage to everyone is basically a red buff for your entire team that also gives them attack speed. This is just so good in so many ways. It makes, like, you could siege a tower, say you're sieging a T2 tower or a Phoenix, or you, like, get a Fire Giant and then you buy this out of base, you walk up to their Phoenix. They can't fight you when you pop this ritual. If they choose to fight into you, they're going to lose, and if they don't fight into you, you shred all of their objectives instantly. Like, if you're a support, normally you're not 6 items. By time one team is significantly in the lead and one team is sieging your base, you normally don't have 6 items as a support, which would mean if you're ahead, and your team is sieging, I'm pretty sure you just buy this, like, almost every time. Maybe junglers can once they get full build, all that stuff. That's absolutely insane. You gotta remove this white noise from the mic. I don't know how to do that. I don't know what's wrong with the mic. I guess because it's, like, constantly activated. I'm sorry. I like, can't mess with it. If it's really bad, my apologies. So in order, the rituals are Frenzied is, like, absolutely nuts. You'll see it every game, I think. I would say the other 3 you probably don't see every game. I think in order, Frenzied is the best. Rallying is the second best, and then I would go Revealing and Flickering are both, like, kind of crappy, I think. They have really niche situations where they could be really good, but hard to tell. The chalices are pretty cool. Basically, you spend gold 1 time for a chalice, so let's use it for the ward one. Since I'm a support, this is the one that I can explain the best. So, say you're backing from base, right? Say you have 1,000 gold. Actually, we'll make it 1,100. 1,100's easier. So you have 1,100 gold as a support. You back to base. So normally, right now, if you have, like, your boots down and watchers, you would buy tier 1 Salve. Let's say that's the easy example. You buy tier 1 Salve with your 1,100 gold. You're down to 400. You buy 2 normal wards. Now you're down to 300. Then you leave base with 300 leftover gold. What you're going to do now is you're going to back. You're going to buy a chalice. So 400 for the ward chalice. So now you go to 0, but what happens here is if you were already going to buy those 2 wards, you were spending 100 no matter what. So now you're going to buy an additional 300, and it will instantly refill your wards every time you come back to the base. It'll refill the chalice, so you'll have 2 wards every single time you back for free, quote unquote for free. So basically, if you were going to buy 2 wards anyways, which you were, you're paying 300 extra for free wards the rest of the game, which means if you back 3 times and get 6 normal wards, it pays for itself. So, aka, every support is going to pick this up every single game at some point. You always pick it up as soon as you can, pretty much. viewing this on the Reddit. I don't know about the mana and the health potion ones. I think maybe for solo lane it would make sense. I think solo laners buy a lot of potions. Junglers as well. Sometimes they'll buy like a mana potion, right? Every single back. Stuff like that can make sense. Sorry, I'm just trying to take a drink. A lot of stuff to go through. Interesting change on the power potions going up to 5 minutes. So basically, something you can see here is that they're really emphasizing the option of consumables and things that are very high risk, high reward, and something that promote fighting around an objective. And you can see that in the relic changes as well. So lots of different relic changes. Crap, there was a synergy I was talking about earlier with the rituals that I forget. Maybe I'll think of it again later on, but we'll go to relics for now. TLDR on the ritual or on the chalices. Ward 1 is a must-buy for support. And for the other ones, I would just mess with it. Maybe if you find something that you really like with it, it makes sense. So, relics are now upgradable, which means the overall power level of relics are going to go up, while the early game prowess of them will go down, is basically what you need to know. So, let's say, for example, Shell. Where is Shell here? So, Magic Shell. Shell was previously, if you look at the games at SWC for Season 3, Shell was picked up on every support, every game, level 1, probably about 90% of the games, maybe a little lower, but basically it was completely ridiculous. They nerfed the unupgraded version, so the level 1 version is now 30% or no 30 prots and 5% damage mitigation, and then it upgrades to 45 prots and 10% damage mitigation. Previously at level 1 you buy Shell, it was 45 procs, 15% damage mitigation. So overall nerf to Shell and a just different power level at the start of the game compared to when it's upgraded. You'll see that for pretty much everything. Blink is another thing that I wanted to see upgraded because 120 seconds is basically, if you're a support player, if you're playing Geb or Sylvanas, something, these gods that are immobile and can't just walk into a team fight where they can't dash taunt and start a fight really easily, Blink used to be picked up on them a lot, so you could blink Gebalt, for example, and 120 seconds meant that you couldn't blink alt off cooldown. Now with Blink Rune, if you upgrade it, you have that option, so you can be a little more aggressive on a god like Geb, who's previously defensive in Season 3. So helps them out a little bit. You'll see minor upgrades to stuff like Aegis as well. I'm not going to go over that too much. So Curse is pretty interesting. They removed the slow from it, so you can compare this to Weakening Curse. They removed the slow from it, but now they made the healing reduction more potent and the counter heal more potent. This is you'll see a lot of healing tweaks in this patch, so that's a pretty good change. Overall, it just brings the power level of healing down and allows people to counter it more easily, and when you do build into countering it, you're more rewarded for it, so pretty good change. I'm going to save Hand of the Gods for last, for kind of obvious reasons. Heavenly Wings, formerly Sprint 3, cleanses slows, does not give slow immunity, so this is a big deal. Previously, Heavenly Wings, or Heavenly, just countered Weakening Curse like all the time because it gave you slow immunity. So if you popped a curse, they would Heavenly, they're immune the entire time, they can't be slowed after that point, and it was a more potent effect once like Heavenly had a higher power level than Curse already, just on its own value, and then the fact that Heavenly also countered Curse made Curse kind of crap. So that interaction isn't quite as relevant. And then Upgrade removes the basic attack penalty to all allies. Basically, Sprint 3 is back. Shoutouts to my boy Dare to Care. I hate it too. Not feeling that, but we'll see how it goes. Meditation minor upgrade is just, it gives you MP5 and HP5. Pretty cool. If you play Assault a lot, you'll love that. Phantom Veil removes the Fatalis effect, so this is Phantom, you know, the lets you walk through walls, that thing. But now applies 40% CC reduction, so crowd control reduction, and knockup immunity. So the upgrade basically if you upgrade it, it basically means for nearly the entirety of a team fight, CC and knockup effects are way weaker against you. Kind of an interesting relic, I think, compared to the power level of things like Shell and Heavenly and a couple other things in here. It's kind of underwhelming, but if you're against a comp that features like Hebo and Bacchus, gods that really rely on knocking you up to take advantage of their damage, or like something like Hebo or Vulcan, they knock you up and then hit you with their ones and try to just one-shot you in that, and now that's no longer possible. Or they actually have to hit 2 skill shots, so kind of an interesting relic, hard to value. I would expect it to be pretty underwhelming. Beads follows the same thing that Aegis does. Upgrade, you get 30 seconds off of it. Shield of Thorns, so this is Thorns or close to Shield of the Underworld of Season 2. The damage reflect was increased by 10% base, and the upgrade lowers the duration. I still think the item will be bad. The reason I think it'll be bad is because in Season 2, Shield of the Underworld was only good because it prevented hunters from lifestealing, which means if you were a warrior, you would ult into their hunter. Their hunter would have to either hit you or walk away. If they chose to hit you, they would get damage reflected onto them, and they wouldn't be able to heal, and then you would just kill them instantly. So that's gone. Like, you can't do that anymore. Because you can't do that anymore, I don't think Thorns is very good. Took a drink again. Sundering Spear. Chat. Bless up. Sunder and Blink are both buffed. They don't get nerfed like they did in Season 3. Blink got nerfed. Wasn't happy about it. We're back. We're gonna kick ass, chat. Increases the damage taken by the target for 5 seconds by 30%. Prot and attack speed reductions removed. Doesn't matter. Damage taken increase is way better. And then upgrade increases the damage and damage level. Damage and damage per level. So the initial base damage and the damage per level is increased if you upgrade it. And it lowers the cooldown. Sunder is nuts. Let's fucking go. With the TP ritual, can't soul laners buy thorns now? No, not exactly, because the TP ritual wasn't that to, no, the TP ritual is to God, so somebody would have to go to your lane for you to TP there, and you'd be dumping 750 gold every time, so definitely not worth to get thorns, especially because thorns isn't good. Teleport glyph, so this is TP. I think you can kind of view this, I would trust, like, Cyclone, and his opinion on this a little more. But my impression of this is it'll probably just be a flat nerf to teleport. If you're a soul laner and you pick up teleport at the start of the game, you now have a 200-second cooldown instead of 180. And I don't think you would pay 500 gold at any early point in the game to upgrade it 40 seconds. I think overall it's just a nerf to teleport because it's longer. And then if you want to get a cooldown that was shorter, you have to spend more gold. And previously the advantage of soul laners is that they're higher level and have more farm. So they're going to be ahead in their build of other people, but if you have to spend 500 gold to get a better relic, that you normally had better anyways, I didn't word that well, but basically, if you want your teleport to be as good or better than it used to be, you have to weaken your build a little bit by 500 gold, whatever. Not the biggest deal, but it's a small nerf. Horrific Emblem. So the curse change was basically split into two. This is the weakening curse, but now the weakening curse doesn't have a slow. There used to be an item called Enfeebling Curse, which branched off of weakening back when it was actives instead of relics, and that used to be attack speed and slow, and that's basically what Horrific Emblem is, just an attack speed and slow decrease. This is very good for not only hurting hunters in a fight, but also gods like Mercury and Kali. They get hit by this really hard because not only do they do less damage because their attack speed is decreased, they have a harder time sticking on people and then get caught out easily. So if you're a Mercury and you ult into a team fight and then the other team Horrific Emblems you, you're in a much worse spot. It's easier for them to kill you, catch up to you, and you can't do as much damage. Pretty good relic. I expect it to be built a pretty often amount of time. Bracer of Undoing is really interesting. I'm not exactly sure how... yeah, and when official patch notes are up, please tell me, guys. But Bracer of Undoing, I'm not exactly sure how this is going to work, but the premise is you take 3 damage. You take damage for 3 seconds before use. It stores that damage, and you heal 50% of that damage. So, to me, it sounds like you're in a fight, you get krakened, you then pop your Bracer, and then it heals you for that damage. I don't know if you have to pop it before or after, that's what I'm saying. It's like hard to tell with the wording to me. And then after you pop it, all your cooldowns are lowered by 3 seconds. So say you're a support, say you're Ymir or something. Like, you can't really get out of fights easily, so you're Ymir. You go into a fight, you freeze people, wall people, and then maybe you use your 2, whatever, and then they counter engage on you. So maybe you freeze a Poseidon, and the Poseidon beads your freeze, and then he Krakens you, and then you heal up the Kraken, and then your freeze is reduced, and then you freeze them again when their beads are down, and then they are dead. You can make cool plays like that. After you popped it after the damage. Okay, that's what I thought. Thank you, Hindo, for clarifying that. So you could make some cool support plays with this. I could also see Soul Laners getting this maybe. Pretty interesting relic. I actually like it a lot. I don't know how good... So, like, I would assume that the 50% heal is also reduced by any heal. If you have, like, Cursed Ankh or a Brawler's Effect on you or Divine Ruin, all that stuff. Then I would assume this gets nerfed. Or, not gets nerfed, gets reduced, and then it's not as good as it could be. But still a pretty interesting relic. Holy crap, dude, there's so much. I can't believe they had this whole show, because I'm skipping all the crap. It doesn't matter. They had to say all of it. Okay, so starter items are pretty cool. I think the first one to go over, because it's the most impactful, is Bumbas. So the jungle changes, where jungle camps don't spawn until 30 seconds, means that because you're not clearing buffs at the start of the game as a jungler, you don't have as much help, which means you need to be a little more self-sufficient, which this Bumbas change helps, because now you have 300 more gold at the start of the game. The downside is the gold sharing is gone, so this means that you're going to be on your own more as a jungler. It'll be less efficient for you to share waves when camps are up, so instead of the normal meta is you go to mid lane, you split the wave, you go into the jungle with your mid laner, clear back harpies, clear speed, clear red, mid harpies, whatever. Now it's going to be your mid harpy clears the wave, you clear back harpies, then maybe you go to a buff, blah blah blah. Basically, you're on your own more, you get more independent decision making, good change. The Bluestone gets MP5, lowers base mana, whatever. Not a huge deal. Still pretty much the same item. You buy it if you need help clearing. Death Toll, power lowered, so that means Bluestone is the outright aggressive option, and Death Toll is the more sustained, like Slapbox Warrior option that you would get on something like an Erlang, an Osiris, Bellona, stuff like that. Rangda's Mask. I heard Hindu talking about this on the Patch Notes show, and I'm pretty sure this is nuts. 500 gold, build stacks off kills and assists, 5 MP5, each time you get an assist, you get a stack, 2 for a kill, so it's a stacking starter item when you get kills. So either you see a kill or you get the kill, depends on if you get 1 or 2 stacks, and at 8 stacks, you get 7% movement speed, 10% CDR, and then at 16 stacks, holy crap, how is this a thing? You get 15 pen, 10% movement speed, and 15% CDR. I'll go over Watcher's Gift really quick. They changed the HP 5 of the item into 5 of each protection, and then your gold for assist is increased. Okay, supports are going to be nuts this patch, because your Watcher's Gift got buffed, so you have more regen from the Watchers. You get more gold from it. And now because Watchers is 800 and the Rangda's Mask is 500, I'm pretty sure every game you're just going to start with both of these out of base, screw Boots 1, and then you're going to get like maybe 3 health pots and 1 mana pot. Remember, you can get a little less potions because 1, you're not taking damage from jungle buffs before you go into lane, and now once you're in lane, you get more regen from the Watchers. So this should be absolutely insane, and then because you have more gold like that, you can take advantage of the chalices, and you can just, you know, get the ward chalice. Supports look like they're in a really good spot as far as items go. I'm actually really excited for that. Then, all changes from here on out will be rushed because they are talking fast. Maybe I should refresh the page really quick. Make sure we got everything. I'm actually going to check the Smite website as well, in case they have the official patch notes. They do not yet. I don't blame them. There's a ton of stuff. Okay, on we go. And yeah, the Rangda's Mask, I don't know how to say this. I didn't go over the rest of the starter items, actually, I forgot. But you could also see that on junglers, because remember, for Bumbas, it only costs 500 gold. So you could get a total of like Bumbas, Rangda's Mask, and then get like some potions, or you could get Boots 1 and then 2 of each potion, mana and health. That gives you your 1500 gold, and then, you know, you're way more self-sufficient. you're rewarded for ganking, because then if you gank and get early kills, you're building up these stacks. So there's so much gameplay choices you can make at the start of the game, which is really exciting. That'll also help gods. Like, I can't think of many off the top of my head, but say for example, you're an early game jungler that really wants to snowball off kills, so, you know, Thanatos is a good example of that. If you get this mask and then you run into the jungle and you start ganking or you start pressuring lanes, you can just start snowballing out of control. There's so much more farm to get on the map as a jungler. And then you can also get... oh, I didn't go over Hog, did I? Okay, and then you also can get Hog and try to snowball even harder. I should go over Hog. Sorry, I'm like all jumbled around. I'll probably edit this when I put it on YouTube, whatever. So, yeah, Mercury loves the mask. Gods like Mercury are really good for it. You can see it on like a Wheelix, Kali. They're pretty good at ganking as well. Or pretty good at just snowballing off ganks. So, formerly Wrath now deals 300 plus 10 per level damage to a single enemy minion or jungle monster. Cooldown is down to goes down 30 seconds if you kill a jungle mob with it. No damage to bosses, which means it doesn't help for the portal thing, any of that. Wait, is this actually the patch notes? Dude, bless up Shen. Let's go. Give me that. Okay, here we go. Map update. Wow, this looks so much cleaner. Let me zoom this in. Oh, this gives you the actual numbers as well. This is nice. So, dude, I wish I had this at the start, and now I'm an idiot. So the Portal Demon, also, I didn't go over this at the start. It gives your team, for killing it, it gives you, you know, actual gold and XP to the entire team. And some of these, just the animations or like the art on this is really cool. Okay, so Hog, back to Hog. So basically what this means is Hog is a pure clear snowball mechanic. You have to upgrade it to get the stun, to get the Wrath effect. So it's hard to tell how good this is. So because you have to go to lane first, you can't just start the game by hogging, but if you're a jungler and you clear the first wave with your mid laner and your mid laner has better clear than their mid laner, you just walk into their jungle and hog their crap and they can't do anything about it. Stuff like that will still be viable. And now it's maybe even more viable because the cooldown gets reduced. I really don't like the cooldown reduction on the Relic. I think it just promotes too much early game snowball. And I think there are so many other cool mechanics in the game, such as the Rangda's Mask that promotes snowball off early game fights. You'd much rather snowball off of fighting than snowball off of just PvE. And it also feels better to losing to fights than to lose it to a Relic, so I really don't like that. I really think they could just remove Hog from the game, honestly. Like, I just don't think it deserves a place. They say, like, the argument for it is that it helps newer players, right? It helps newer people jungle, but I just don't think that you can have that type of item be viable and competitive without creating, like, a really annoying meta. So I'm personally not a fan of it. We'll see how it works, though. I went over all of those, so now you're seeing the... Alright, so Sands of Time was where I was next on the starter items. 20 magical power, 5 MP5, 10% CDR. So, what I was saying about the early game starts is this starter item specifically I think will help a lot of mages be viable. If you look at all the mage items, it's very hard to build CDR into them. Previously, you would have to get cooldown shoes or an early game Chronos Pendant, and those were really only your viable, or really were your only viable items as a mage to get CDR, and neither of them were better than their counterparts, which would be, you know, Pen Boots were just better than CDR shoes for damage, and if you wanted to get Chronos Pendant, you're giving up like a Book of Thoth or a Doom Orb or something like that, or just Pen, and it very rarely was worth it, so Sands of Time can help you get that early game CDR. It helps gods like, you know, maybe it'll help a god like Janus, for example, who's very spammy. A god like Hebo is very spammy. Chang'e, healers in general. Hell is another very good example. If you're playing a Hell, you have CDR so you can heal more often, and you have MP5 so you can spam your abilities. So I expect this to be a pretty good starter item. In the same way that I expect Soulstone to be a pretty bad starter item, unless you're going for early kills. The MP5 is off of it, so... Previously, gods like Janus would get Soulstone, stack it up, hit the wave, you'd have a ton of MP5, spam all of your abilities, have really good clear. Now you're picking Soulstone as more of that early game kill option, so it buffs all abilities used after the stacks are consumed for 3 seconds instead of only buffing one ability. So say you're Hebo, and you have... maybe Vulcan's a better damage, or a better example. Like, I guess both of them are kind of the same. I don't know how Soulstone works with turret, but basically, you auto-attack, you hit them with your abilities, it does a crap ton of bonus damage. You could get early kills off that and start snowballing. You could also get, if you're Hebo, say you're like a Hebo and you're mid and you have like Soulstone and you can get Rangda's Mask because it's, 800 and 500 puts you to 1300. There's a lot of options you could go here that are pretty crazy. Swift Wing. Holy crap, there's so much. 800 gold, 100 health, 10 HP 5% movement speed. Whenever you leave the fountain, you gain bonus 40% movement speed. This is also an item that you could see paired with Bumbas. Basically makes you move around the map and out of base more, so your uptime in terms of just doing good stuff on the map, farming, ganking, is much higher, so you're more efficient in your pathing. I don't know if it's completely worth it. I think other items could be better, but it certainly looks like it could be viable. Vamp Shroud are added 4% magical lifesteal, so basically you have, of the 3 mage starting items, you have Sands of Time is your more mid to late game focused item where you're trying to build up a good build so that later in the game you're stronger than somebody who goes like a Soulstone. The people who would go Soulstone are looking for an early game advantage, and people who go Vamp Shroud are looking for early game sustain, so people like Anubis, maybe Poseidon could use this. He can heal a lot off his Whirlpool, stuff like that. Generally, you're also going to see that magical lifesteal has been buffed, so sustain for a lot of mages are going to be better. You could also see this Vamp Shroud previously on a magical ADC like Freya. You would go Soulstone, but now that it doesn't have that MP5 sustain, you basically would be getting a starter item on Freya with Soulstone that doesn't give her any sustain, and she can't really go for early kills because her clear isn't that good. So you probably see someone like Freya go Vamp Shroud, the lifesteal synergizes with her kit, she has better sustain, so on and so forth. Already went over the mask and went over Watchers. I expect this combo specifically to be very, very good for supports. You could probably just start it off the start of the game. Magical items. Here's the lifesteal I was talking about. You can pretty much see this is the tier 1, tier 2 lifesteal is increased. They rounded. I'm not even going to go over the cost of the items. Basically, they rounded it either up or down to end in 100 or 50. You see a couple numbers adjustments to reflect that. See Polly get magical lifesteal increase. Divine Ruin is removed from the tree, so you'll see that in the penetration tree. Pythagorean's Piece is a pretty cool item. They decrease the cost, give it 200 mana, and now it gives you that same aura, but it also applies to physical gods. I'm going to close smite, which is pretty nuts. I think Pythags is probably going to be a core item on most mages. It just seems so strong on paper that I would expect you'll see it pretty much every game. Mike, that was the warrior support item. If it's mislabeled, wait, what? Wait, is it mislabeled? I'm so confused. I don't even know, Cardiac, whatever. I'm going to keep moving on. It's hard to keep up with everything. Bancroft's Talon, they moved the lifesteal down from this on the base item, but they added the passive, so if you're lower health, you lifesteal more. This is really good for characters like Anubis. The mask, that was the warrior support. Oh! I see what you're saying. There were two masks. There was... Oh, they have the same name. That's why I skipped over it. Okay. This was the warrior support item, right? Thank you, Cardiac. 10 physical power, 100 health, 5 MP5, being in range of a minion or jungle camp, death without dealing the killing blow, so Watcher's style effect, restores 5 health, 5 mana, same thing. Also provides you with a stacking self buff of 1% movement speed and 1% attack speed for 3 seconds. Realistically, the most you're going to get this buff stacked up to is 9 seconds if you instantly kill a camp and then go clear a wave. And I don't know if 9% movement speed and attack speed is really that good. I think this is just an underwhelming item. It could be cool for some assassins. I don't see it for warriors, but if you're playing Naja or something, you ring bounce a buff and then you go to the wave, and then you have that attack speed and movement speed, and you're playing like a Naja support. It could be interesting. Maybe you pick it up on some support style junglers. So like if you're weakened and you're playing Odin and you're just trying to set people up, maybe you get this item along with your Bumbas, and it helps you move around the map and do stuff like that. I'm not sure. It's hard to value this item. It looks underwhelming in my opinion, though. When will the PTS be online? I think they said tomorrow is what it looks like. Yeah, I think they said Thursday afternoon. So where was I? Book of the Dead costs 1,600 to upgrade from Talon Trinket, so 3,000 total. 100 magical power, 15% lifesteal, 200 health. So it's pretty interesting that it has health on it. It means it gives you good sustain, and it makes you a little tankier. And then if you deal damage to an enemy that when you are already at max health, you gain a health shield. Kind of an interesting item. I think it generally looks underwhelming. I think it's too expensive to warrant the passive. I could see it on a god like Hebo maybe. If you're Hebo and you're going like a Bruise or Hebo build, you could buy this and then like 3 somebody. Your 3 will deal 1,000,000 damage and then you get a big health shield. That could be pretty cool, but overall it seems underwhelming. I think they called it War Flag or something. Yeah, you're correct. I think that warrior support item was War Flag. But yeah, overall I think you'll just see this as a really like underwhelming item that won't get picked up much, but it is pretty cool. I could be completely wrong. It's hard to value passives like that because it isn't a passive that you can guarantee getting, because you can't guarantee that you're going to be full health. So I don't know, it's kind of odd. Penetration tree, they decrease the cost of the tier 1 item by a good bit. I think Pan had mentioned during the patch notes that they basically made it so that you can build all of the starter items off the start of the game. So if you were to go a starter item plus a tier 1 in any other tree, you can basically do that. You'll see that theme occur the rest of the patch notes. Obsidian Shard increased the cost. This is a really good change. Obsidian Shard was just, it had more power than Spear of the Magus, it was cheaper than Spear of the Magus, and it was more efficient for pen. So they reel at least one of those factors back, which is good. I still expect people to pretty much build it every game. It just makes mages a little bit weaker because they have to spend more gold. Divine Ruin, 2,400 gold, 80 magical power, 15 pen, and it has the same effect, but it actually went from 40 to 50 seconds. This is your magical equivalent of Brawler's Beatstick. It makes Divine Ruin a hell of a lot better. This is a really healthy item for the game because it keeps healing in check. It also gives you a better flat pen option, so now you can combo something like Obsidian Shard with Divine Ruin, and then a god like, maybe a god like Janus or something. Any basically normal mage could kill something like a Ra way easier, or when you poke them, they can't heal up. So pretty good. Spear of Desolation, it used to have a passive where you kill somebody, it basically resets your cooldowns. They now have reduced the cost by 1,100 gold, 3,800 to 2,700. Previously, the most expensive item in the game by far, by pretty much 500 gold. They basically changed the item completely. 50 less power, 1,100 less gold. So overall, if you think about that, 1,100 gold for 50 power trade-off, the power gets hurt a lot from that. That doesn't seem to be as proportional as it maybe could be, but it gives you 10% CDR, so makes sense, that's the trade-off. And then remove the passive, so this is your flat pen power CDR option on mages. I think it's pretty good. I think you will now see mages shy away from something like a Book of Thoth or Soul Reaver early, that they were building a lot of Season 3, and now you'll see them go for like boots into maybe a CDR option, which could be, maybe a Spear of Desolation, or you could go like Poly or Divine Ruin, and then you get, basically you're going to get 2 pen items, I would expect. Probably either Spear or Divine Ruin, and then you get the Obsidian Shard, and then you get Rada Tahuti, all that stuff. Will Book of the Dead be really, really good on Ao Kuang, and if you can sneak in and hit a 2 on someone? It could be, but I think it's so hard to get that off. And then, yeah. Okay, Wardstone and Voidstone removed from this tree. Go to that right now. The Druidstone tree, basically it is a hybrid magical power and protection tree. So a bruiser item, basically a bruiser item for Guardians. The first one is Stone of Binding. 20 magical power, 30 magical prot, 30 physical prot, 10% CDR. Successfully hitting an enemy god with hard crowd control will place a buff on allies within 70 units of the user. This buff provides 10 penetration for 5 seconds. I think this buff is, or this item is completely nuts. The buff is completely insane for people to follow up off of your hard CC. And for supports, it's like a really cheap item that gives you 60 total prots and CDR. It's like, I would expect this to be built fairly often in support, especially with another item that you'll see later. That kind of balances it out. It just seems so overstated for 1700 gold. Like, I don't know, this item looks nuts to me. I'm pretty sure. It also helps like Ymir jungle, Athena jungle, stuff like that. It gets a lot better. Cabrakan jungle. Sage's Stone is another tier 2 item in this tree, and this builds into Stone of Fall. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. 70 magical power, 40 magical protection, 10% CDR. Anytime, basically this passive, you can read it for yourself. It stops you from getting one shot. If an ability previously would have done more than 30% of your health, it brings it down to only do 30%, which, you know, it sounds like, holy crap, if I was going to get a Scylla ult that hits me for 100% of my health, it's now only going to do 30. But if a Scylla Crush was going to hit you for 32% of your health, it now only deals 30 and your passive is gone. And without the passive, the item is really understated, and I think even with the passive, the item is understated. I think this is generally just a bad item. If the only way you lose a fight is if you get one shot, is if like one person gets one shot by a mage, and then they buy this item so they can't get one shot by a mage, that's like the only way I could think of it being good. Pretty underwhelming though. Then you have Wardstone, and Voidstone moved into this tree, and the protection is increased from 60 to 70, so a buff to Voidstone. Also, another thing to note about Voidstone is because it was moved into this tree, and it has this as the starter item instead of the Magic Focus, which it used to. Magic Focus used to only give you power, so if you were a support and you wanted to get Voidstone, you would have to get a tier 1 item that doesn't give you any protection. And now the tier 1 item does give you protection, so a slight buff to help supports build into that item if you do choose to. Overall Magical Bruiser buff to Guardians. Celestial Legion Helm, basically complete rework. It is the aggressive version of Lotus Crown. 60 magical power, 30 prot, 20 MP5. You give power to allies who get healed. Pretty simple item. I think it's okay. I think if you're a healer, you normally want to give different effects than this to your team. I don't know if it's worth the gold that Celestial Legion Helm costs, which I think is 2400. But definitely an interesting item. You could see it on something like a Hell or a Chang'e, maybe. I could see it on Chang'e for sure. Because you have to be in the middle of a fight. So they could take advantage of that. Jade Emperor's Crown. 2150 gold. 20 magical power, 60 prot, 100 health, have their power reduced by 30 if they're within 55 units of you. Hard to value this item. It seems like an okay bruiser item. I think that Dynasty Plate Helm just makes a little more sense to build than this because it is cheaper and it offers you more damage, and I think if you're going to build into damage, there's better options. If you're going to build into defense, there's better options. So obviously this is the hybrid. And I don't know if it's that strong as a hybrid. I think you'd maybe be better off just going more invested into one side or the other. I could be completely wrong though. Physical power aura is like generally pretty underwhelming. Normally physical gods function off of like attack speed and stuff like that more than they do, and like movement in a fight than they do actual power. Definitely not a bad item though. Could be good. Restored Artifact decreases the cost for the tier 2 item and increases the MP5. Chronos Pendant gets a complete rework pretty much. The cost is increased from 2400 to 2900, 500 more gold, and it decreases the power with that. I'd assume the 20% CDR is still on the item, but I'm not sure about that. And then every 10% the pendant activates, subtracting 1 second from all abilities currently on cooldown. The only way you'll see this be good is if your alt cooldown really matters. Maybe you could see it on something like Morrigan, but I think it's too expensive. I think Chronos Pendant is probably one of the weaker abilities, or one of the weaker items in the game. If you're going to spend this much gold on an item, you're probably going to get Soul Reaver, the new Spear of Desolation, or like just something else. I'm not sure. I don't think it's that good. Rod of Tahuti, small numbers change, nothing too big there. Soul Reliquary, you're going to see this change with the Sash Tree as well. They decrease the gold by 50. This is notable because if you're a mid laner, or you're just a mage in general, and you're starting the game, you can get a starter item, this Soul Reliquary, and one potion, like a health potion, which can be very useful, and it decreases the magical power, which means that now that it's a more appealing level 1 option, they're going to reduce the level 1 power of it, which is a smart change. Soul Trap, rounding out numbers. Soul Reaver, rounding out numbers, no big change. Uncommon Sash, the same thing, rounding out the numbers to affect the 50 gold. Fortified Scepter, you're going to see this item split into 2 trees now, which will offer crowd control reduction to something like Gem of Isolation. So now, Fortified Scepter builds into Gem of Isolation and Ethereal Staff. The mana of these items gets removed, but the crowd control reduction gets put on them, which is pretty good for tanky mages, like if you were building a Bruiser Chang'e or a Bruiser Hebo or a Cabrakan. Cabrakan is a really good example, because Gem 1 Cabrakan is sick, and now you can't be CC'd as much, so you're in their face, they can't do as much about it, and you still have this really strong item. Ethereal Staff is pretty cool. This item was pretty much dead all of Season 3, whereas previously in Season 2 it was extremely viable to Guardian Soul Laners, Sobek, Shingten, stuff like that. Cool to see it come back. 90 power, 200 health, 20% CCR. Your abilities deal bonus magical damage to enemy gods equal to 5% of their max health. I'm not sure how good this item will be. I think it'll be pretty good. If you're a Hebo and you're building like a Bruiser Hebo, I think this will actually be a thing where you go like that new magical item that's in the Druid Stone tree, and then you get like a Dynasty Plate Helm, and then you get Ethereal Staff, and you're super tanky, your abilities do % damage, you're super spammy. Bruiser Hebo is going to be a thing, I'm pretty sure. Like, this item is nuts for a lot of gods like him. Rod of Healing and Rod of Asclepius, basically, beforehand, Rod of Asclepius gave 25% bonus healing. That is now reduced to 20% in combat, and out of combat it's at 10%. You see that change basically halved by the tier 2 option. So overall nerf to Rod of Asclepius. I like the way they did this. They're having a theme of making in combat healing be different than out of combat healing. Previously healing metas were quote unquote aids, for lack of a better term, because the out of combat healing was too strong. You would be able to completely reset a fight, heal up to full, and then it just was so hard to counter because the healing reduction options are for in-fight, and the thing you're struggling with is out-of-fight, so brings the power level of that down. Obvious good change. This is a pretty interesting change, was the attack speed tree for mages. I wasn't quite sure why they adjusted this so much. The Demonic Grip change makes a little bit of sense. This basically brings down the power level of a god like Freya or Kronos or whatever a little bit. And again, rounds out the cost. The interesting one is Telekines. I think this game was like kind of a niche item that was really balanced, and it's basically out of the game, and now they make it a more late game option for magical attack, like auto attack gods. So 2,800 gold cost, 80 power, and a 20% attack speed. Decent stats, I think, for a item like that. And the passive is successfully hitting enemies or structures, so enemy gods, I think, I would assume. Maybe it's minions as well. With basic attacks, just freaking lisping it up over here, gives you a buff of 10 magical power. This buff stacks up 5 times, so it can go 10 to 50. This is a pretty interesting item. I think Toli had mentioned this on the patch notes, and I think this is the best application. Is previously a god like Freya, once she got rolling, could be really good in team fights, but was not good at sieging towers, and while that is a good weakness to have, it's also bad if games get too stalematy because you can't siege a base. So if your problem for your team comp is you need help sieging and you have a Freya, the Freya can pick up this item, have to sacrifice in their build a little bit elsewhere. Maybe they, maybe they lose lifesteal because they're going Demonic Grip and Telekines instead of Demonic Grip and like Pythags or something like that. They have options to give up, but you give up that, you siege a little better, and then if they try to engage on you while you're sieging, you have 50 bonus power to your alt. That does an insane amount of damage. So lots of good applications for that. Pretty interesting item. And then they add Shaman's Ring to this tree. 2,400 gold, 40 power, 30% attack speed, so it's the most efficient attack speed. It gives the most attack speed in this tree. And then each basic attack that hits an enemy god heals you for 3% of your maximum health and mana. Pretty good for just sustaining. I don't think the passive is worth 2,400 gold. And if you're going to go for an attack speed item, I think you would just go Demonic Grip. Overall, I think this item is pretty bad, but people may be able to find some application for it that makes it a lot better than I'm thinking, but overall I think it's just a bad item and you won't pick it up much. Physical items, so now that's the end of the mage items. Bound Gauntlet, just added mana to it, added 10% crowd control reduction. Soul Eater, increased the cost by 200, removed the attack speed, added mana, adds crowd control. Hidden enemy gods with a basic attack heals you for 30% of your max HP per hit. So in Season 3, Soul Eater was this item that gave you a health reserve for gods like hunters. You would get stacks off the item, and then you were brought below a certain amount of health, and those stacks would give you a health reserve, and it would heal you up when you really needed the heal. The item is basically completely reworked into a warrior item that gives you mana and crowd control reduction, which are pretty bad stats by themselves. But the passive of hitting an enemy god with a basic attack, healing you for 3% of your max HP, if you're like an Osiris or something, and you're just boxing in lane, if you get a lot of procs off of this passive, it could be pretty nuts. I think you would see this a lot more in like Joust and duel scenes than you would in Conquest, but I could see it on like some soul lane warriors. It could be an interesting item, but overall pretty underwhelming. The Mace Tree has some cost adjustments, so the tier 1 goes down. The Titan's Bane goes up a lot. This mirrors the Obsidian charge, or Obsidian Shard change, so nothing too crazy there. Brawlers is also changed to mirror the Divine Rune change, except it's actually more cost efficient because it's 200 gold less. I think I would revert this gold change and the pen change. I think Brawlers was kind of fine. And, you can bring the healing to where Divine Rune is. I don't think it was a necessary change, but actually I probably would only revert the cost. I think the pen is a good option because now an item like Crusher and Jotuns, like, their pen is more in line, so Jotuns is 10, Brawlers is 15, Crusher is 20. Unless they reworked Crusher. I actually missed this one. Okay, never mind, I'm an idiot. 2,300 gold, 30 physical power, 15% attack speed, 15 pen. This is like the Hunter. I remember this now. This is like the Hunter Mace item. I think I couldn't see it because it was like that. Anyways. Successfully hitting an enemy god with a basic attack will subtract 1 second from all of your abilities on cooldowns. This effect can only occur every 5 seconds. Really cool item for hunters that like to weave abilities in. Neith is a good example of that. I think you could see Ullr being the obvious one for this. Is Ullr previously, you could go a full mace build on Ullr, like you go Transcendence, maybe Hydras, and get like Jotuns, Brawlers, Titans, you can get any of those options, and Ullr would function pretty well because his abilities do so much damage. I think this item will help gods like Ullr just flat out be good, because now you could go like Boots into a stacking item, then get some lifesteal, and then you just get this, and then you can weave abilities in between your auto attacks and you're spamming your abilities. It could be a really good item for him, so I would expect to see this item picked up a good bit. Other hunters with this, probably like Anhur, maybe, could work on him. Medusa, I think I already said. Ullr, Hou Yi is another good one. So, really good item. This is a really strong item. And you could see it on Assassins as well. I was going to say a Wheelix, but because the proc is off of your basic attack, it has anti-synergy with a Wheelix, because as a Wheelix you want to go in, auto-attack, and then use your 2 on them, but your 2 isn't getting the cooldown reduction because you had already auto-attacked. I don't know if it procs it if your abilities are already off cooldown. Maybe it could work with a Wheelix if you like auto 2 and then the proc is able to be used and then you auto again and then it refreshes your cooldown. I don't know if it works like that. Just keep in mind that you should test those type of interactions. But gods it could be good on is like Nemesis, right? You like walk up, you slow them, then you auto attack them, then your slow cooldown is reduced. Stuff like that could be pretty cool. Physical power and physical protection tree, so bruiser items. Shield of Regrowth is taken out of it. Spike Shield and Round Shield have a little price adjustments, and for Round Shield has a power adjustment to relate to that. Gladiator Shield, 1700 gold, 25 physical power, 40 physical prot, 10% CDR. Anytime an item with 1700 gold has CDR on it, this is what I said about the magical version of this, it tends to be completely nuts because cost-efficient CDR is so hard to come by, or it was previously in the game's history. And then anytime you hit an enemy god with an ability, you're healed for 2% of your max health and mana. I don't think this is as good as the magical effect, which was your teammates gain penetration whenever you hit them with a crowd control ability. Because like these bruiser items have the same, you know, like they kind of align in price and stuff. But it's a decent item. I don't think it's great. It's kind of a bridge item. Maybe for like warriors in Soul Lane, or maybe like jungle warriors or stuff like that. Overall, pretty underwhelming, but if you buy it, it'll just be because the 1700 gold for these stats is so stat efficient. So, could be good. And like I said, because of the map changes, a early game brawling meta is most likely going to be what the game turns into, which could be really fun. So, if you're going for early game brawling, cost-efficient, like tempo items like this are really good. Physical power and magical protection tree. Basically, you just see power brought down a little bit. For Runic Shield, remove the attack speed reduction from the aura, so now this only reduces your magical protection. And then it removes the visual effects, so basically this and Witchblade, you won't see the glow around them, and you just will know that, like, you know, the power aura reduction is on them. I think Ajax said that those auras don't need to be shown. I kind of disagree with that. I think it is good to give players as much information as you possibly can. I just think you don't need those auras to be so heavy on them. Like, you don't need a big black aura around somebody when they're affected by a Witchblade. It doesn't have to be really intense, but just a little something is nice. Ancile, aka the worst. I started playing the game around Janus release, and I think that's like around when this item was introduced. I'm just going to go ahead and call it the worst item in the game's history, because it's like never good. Internal cooldown reduced from 60 to 30. It's so hard to value that item because the proc is just like hard to have it trigger when you actually want it. So still a bad item, I think. Too many changes. Welcome to the frickin' season. And again, guys, like these changes seem really overwhelming because they're all in your face right now. But if you kind of pay attention to how I'm highlighting these, a lot of them, like the Ancile one, you're not going to really care about at all. You more want to pay attention to items like the starter items that are really going to affect the start of the game, and then you just want to test everything from there, and eventually everything will weed itself out as to what is good and what is really trash. Runeforged Hammer, so another item that previously was completely trash in Season 3. The power is increased, and enemies take 10% bonus damage from you if they are affected by any form of crown control, not your own. So you could see this on like bruiser warriors type thing, maybe a Hercules or something. You combo them, you do more damage with your combo. That could make sense. Overall, I still think it's a bad item. The problem with passives like these are that the 10% damage bonus you get is not better than just building into like pen and power. There's just no reason for doing that. So I don't know. I think it's still a bad item. Basically, if you want damage, you're just gonna build pen and power, and it's just more efficient than this. It's better like stats. And it doesn't have a condition. You don't have to be crowd controlled to receive the more damage. Which is also a big deal because it helps your clear. Like when you build items, you also want your clear to be increased, even if you don't think of it that way. If you're a warrior building damage, like a void shield or something, like even though it's a very minor effect, you still like auto attack and hit gold furies and stuff or more. So I don't know. It's just an underwhelming item. Shillelagh is a tier 2 item with a cool name. Blackthorn Hammer, 2300 gold, 30 power, 200 health, 200 mana. If you are reduced to below 30% HP, all your cooldowns are reduced by 3 seconds, and all of your abilities cost 0 mana. This is a really cool effect. If you look at Soul Lander's build throughout all of Season 3, you'll see, like, boots into breastplate into, like, Spirit Robe, Genji's Guard, that type of stuff. And it was really, a lot of the good defense items did not have health on them, so you would search for a way to put health into your build. So you would get something like a Wing Blade or a Frostbound Hammer. Now you have this as an option where you could go boots, Breastplate of Valor into Blackthorn Hammer. And then if you get ganked and they put you below 30% HP, maybe you get your escape back off cooldown, or maybe you didn't have enough mana to get out and now you do have enough mana. A lot of cool interactions could be good with this item. You could also see this on warrior supports. So say you're, this is a bit more of a stretch, but say you're like a Guan Yu or an Erlang Shen. Let's use Guan as a good example, because Guan suffers from being very spammy, so he runs out of mana, and he's very cooldown dependent. So maybe you're a Guan, you're in the middle of a team fight, your heal is on cooldown, your dash is on cooldown, you don't have enough mana to use both, they put you below 30% HP, you have enough to use both, and they reduce your cooldowns to be used, and you get out when you, like, any other time in Smite's history you would have been dead. So, lots of cool interactions with that, lots of cool outplay potential that can be possible because of this item. So definitely play around with this. I'd encourage all of you to play on PTS and give your feedback to the developers and really help them, because there's so many changes here, and I think this is one of the changes that could be really fun to mess with. Physical power and attack speed, just, you know, cost adjustment. Then you go to the Hunter's Bow, costs 1150, built off of Short Bow, so now you have like an actual tier 2 item in this tree, instead of just like Short Bow into Ickfall, right? You have like a medium between there. And that will build into Ickfall and Silver Branch Bow. I think that's the only two it builds into, and then like Oboe has its own like little thing. But Silver Branch Bow is basically the magical version of Ickfall, so if you are a Uller or something, whatever god you're playing, any hunter versus a magical AD carry, you can now get Ickfall, but this will be better against that magical ADC. So this is really good design by Hi-Rez's end, because at the end of Season 3, magical ADCs tended to just be way better than physical counterparts. So now you bring the power level of those mage ADCs down by allowing the physical gods to compete with them more, because they can take away a bit of their power. I actually would have buffed this item by a little bit and had the power be a 15 or 20 per stack, because if you look at normal Ickfall, it is 10 per stack for physical, and magical items tend to give more magical power than physical items do physical. There's like a bit of a scaling increase from the physical to magical power ratio. So I would increase the power level of this a little bit, but that's a really, really good item design choice by Hi-Rez. Physical power and movement speed items, so the Katana tree, the change I mentioned earlier, you can now build pretty much any tier 1 item of any tree along with a starter item. The Katana cost change mirrors that. Masamune, pretty much a new item. 2,500 gold, 50 power, 100 health, 10% movement speed. Pretty good stats. 50 power for 2,500 gold is comparable to stone cutting, which is 2,600 gold for 50 power. And then you still get the 10% movement speed, but instead of stone cutting where you get nothing else, you get 100 health in terms of base stats. And then for each enemy god within 55 units of you, you gain a stacking buff that provides 5 magical protection and 5 physical protection. This is pretty much just Afro passive, new Afro passive. I think that this is kind of a nuts item. I can't quite tell, but if you're playing like any type of bruiser physical jungler, like it could just be completely nuts. Like, you're getting a lot of power, a lot of health, movement speed, helps you survive, and then you get this type of passive. Masamune could be a really, really cool item. Could be cool for gods like, I don't know, maybe like an Amma or something. I don't know who could take advantage of all these stats at once. It's hard to think. Vamana's a good one. There you go. To beat Soup in chat. Vamana's a good example. So yeah, you'll probably see a good bit of this item. Alright, my apologies. I had to take a drink. Okay, Heartseeker. Increase the cost by 300 gold, added 10 physical pen, remove the old passive. Every successful basic attack it gives you 1 stack of focus, same type of mechanic. But this time when you consume the stacks, I believe before it gave you additional power and attack speed. Now what it's going to do is give you damage equal to 100% of your physical power. So think of this as adding 100% scaling to whatever ability you use next to hit a god. Basically, this should be nuts. Like, if you're in a Wheelix and you're jungling and you jump on somebody and you, like, maybe not jump, you don't want to jump on them, but if you're in a Wheelix and you start fighting somebody and you, like, auto attack to them, your 2 is going to hit for, like, 600 damage. Like, this could be nuts on a god like a Wheelix. Also, like you said in chat, Thor could be very good with it. Fenrir could be very good with it. Heartseeker is just going to be... Previously, you would see junglers only build boots into Hydras, Jotuns, or like an attack speed option. But now you're going to see Heartseeker as another good option after boots. So, pretty cool item. The crit tree, basically only Rage is going to change. Rage was previously the consistent crit item where if you auto attack but don't get a crit, your crit chance is increased. That passive is now gone. It is now a team fight item where if you witness a kill or get the kill, it increases your crit chance by 20%, and the buff can stack up. I think this is just a bad item now. Rage was previously falling out of favor for an item that you're about to see in a second, Wind Demon. And I think it'll still be the same. I don't think you're pretty much ever going to build Rage. It just isn't good enough. Was like second guessing myself on that, but yeah, I'm pretty sure Rage is just like the worst crit item in the game by far. Shuriken, pretty good that they adjusted. This was previously the worst tier 1 item in the game. It was like 900. It was 900 gold for 15 physical power. Like, that is the most cost inefficient thing ever. They changed those numbers, added 5% attack speed. Now it's a good tier 1 item. Then you go into the 8-pointed Shuriken. This is the tier 2, you add 10% attack speed to mirror the tier 1 change, and then Wind Demon and Poison Star each get attack speed onto them. The 15% attack speed bonus on Poison Star is actually really interesting. I think that helps the item be way more viable. Previously, you would only see it considered on a god like Mercury, but now you might see this item on Hunters. You could see both Poison Star and the Crusher with their reworked or, you know, buffed versions. You could see them weaved into a lot more Hunter builds, where previously the Hunter builds would just be Boots, Devo Gauntlets, Ickfall, Executioner, Crit. But now you have more options, more flexibility in there. So, seeing Hunter builds evolve will be pretty interesting. And Wind Demon best crit item? Yeah, pretty much, by far. Attack speed and movement speed tree, so Ritual Dagger, previously known as Ritual Dagger. What? Remove the old passive. So the old passive on Ritual Dagger was when you use a relic, the duration is increased by 50%. You now no longer need that because that effect is in a lot of other relics because relics are now upgradable. So it gave it a new passive, which is you gain 20% cooldown reduction on your relics. So let's say you have Blink, and your Blink is 90 seconds, and then, well, I picked an odd number, but pick Blink, your cooldown's 90 seconds, you get Ritual Dagger, now your cooldown is lower than 90 seconds, so it'll be like, you know, somewhere in the neighborhood of 70, right? So, I think it's like 73, something like that. Anyways, just overall much stronger. And, I think you'll see it tried out. The hard thing is, I thought the previous version of Ritual Dagger would be really good, and it just was awkward to build into. I think the same thing about this, but now because so many items are changing, it's hard to tell what is really, you know, the cream of the crop. So, hard to tell. Fatalis added 10% or added 10 penetration and decreased the attack speed. Fuck this item. I hate it. Cursed Blade. This is the tier 2 of Witchblade. I'll just go over Witchblade because the changes are pretty much mirrored here. Is you increase the attack speed from 10 to 15%. I'd assume, does this apply to Witchblade as well, or does it not have attack speed? I'd assume Witchblade also has the 15% attack speed, so we'll go off that, which is what it previously had. So, no more physical prot on Witchblade, it now gives health instead, which is actually a good thing, because now it removed the physical power reduction. So this item is basically enemies hit by your basic attacks are cursed. receiving 15% reduced healing, stacking up to 3 times and lasting 5 seconds. So, if you read this item, it may not seem intuitive to you at first because of the way the text is, but what Witchblade now does is is it 2,050 gold or 2,200? I think it's 2,050 gold. It is 200 health, 15% attack speed, 10% movement speed. It still has the attack speed slow aura, but now it is not paired with physical power reduction. The new aura on top of it, on top of the attack speed, is that when you hit them with the basic attacks, they're cursed and they receive reduced healing. Witchblade's going to be built a lot if that's how it is supposed to be, and I think I got that correct. And if it does have the attack speed reduction and the healing reduction and movement speed and attack speed and health, this will be built on every single warrior in the history of the game and could be good enough to make, I guess, warrior supports and warrior junglers a lot better. So this is like a Wingblade like filler item, kind of, yeah. It's really insane. Cloak tree, cost reduction, cost reduction, cost reduction, cost reduction, cost reduction, cost reduction, and cost reduction. Wait, actually was Spirit Robe a cost increase? Oh, increased. My bad. 10 gold increase. I had one thing, or 40 gold increase. I thought that was a... Shut up, idiots. Iron Mail decreased the cost by 75, 25 less health, 10 less prots. A lot less efficient to build this now. The 10 prots is mainly the big deal here. The breastplate tree reduced the cost. This was already a good tier 1 item. A little bit better now. Whatever, no big deal. 10 MP5 onto the tier 2 and 10 MP5 onto the tier 3, which is breastplate. So basically, the breastplate tree, you're adding MP5 to all these items and you're reducing the physical protection of them, which is an overall nerf to this tree. The only buffs worth considering is Nemean is now better, which helps counter hunters a little more, and Spectral Armor is basically new. You lose 5% CCR, which is a pretty big deal, and then anytime you receive physical damage from a god, enemies within 30 units of you become feared. This is similar to a Ensign effect, except Spectral Armor is an actual buildable item, because it is 1900 gold or whatever it is. I think it is 1900 for 70 physical prot, 20% CCR, which is extremely efficient, and then it gives you a fear anytime you're hit by physical damage. So pretty good. Trying to think of any other like cool gameplay mechanics with Spectral Armor, and I think there will be a lot of them. You just kind of have to play with it. The obvious one is if you're like getting attacked or getting dove, and you like have a support initiate on you, and then like some physical god follows up and it like fears the support off you or something. Like I don't know. There's a lot of weird stuff that can happen. Talisman decreases the cost from, decreased cost, blah blah blah. Increased cost by 25. Increased cost by 25. New item, Talisman of the Relentless, 2250 gold, 50 magical prot, 200 health, 20% CCR. This is really good stats for 2250 gold. Previously, if you were building magical prot, Heartward was like kind of underwhelming. It was a good aura, but personally for yourself, it was not that great. You didn't really feel that tanky. Bulwark was too expensive for a support to buy a lot of times, and Pestilence was good for anti-heal. So let's use Pestilence as the example. It was 2150 gold for 200 health and 80 magical prot. So you're paying 100 more gold for 30 less prot and an additional 20% CCR. That's normally a pretty good trade-off, especially if their comp has more physical than magical damage. And then every time you're hit by a hard crowd control effect by an enemy, you become more relentless, gaining stacks. If you have 3 stacks, the next hard CC ability you're hit by will make you immune for 1 second. Did I say physical defense? My bad, I meant magical. But yeah, I think this item is really good. It's hard to explain, but this punishes people for poking you a lot. So basically, if you have this item and you're a support, people can't really use hard CC to poke you because at some point, if you like stack, I guess it's like weird to explain. It has a weird effect where if you use your stacks correctly, or the enemy doesn't play around them correctly, if they use their CC to poke you for a little bit too much and you just heal up, or you just have the effect later, the time when they actually want to hard engage on you, you could just get out because you're CC immune. The better example, and the one that'll happen more often, is if you're a support late game and you have this and people are trying to go on you and CC chain you, they get punished, one, for CC chaining and blowing too much into you because you can probably get out because you're CC immune. And also, if they CC chain incorrectly and blow too much CC at once on you and they like overlap their abilities, it punishes them super hard because you get out of all of them. And that can like insta win a team fight for you. Then you have the magical protections and mana tree. I don't know how to say this. I was trying to figure it out, but I'm not going to try. Genji's Guard gets a small nerf. This is also why I think Talisman of the Relentless is good, because previously, if you didn't want to get Heart Ward or Pestilence as a support, your next option was often Genji's Guard. It'll now be Talisman of the Relentless, and this may just be the best option flat out. So, pretty interesting to have more options for magical. And you get another one because Ani's Hunter's Garb is not complete garbage. Remove the old passive, which was stacking protections, and now you get, when you deal damage to an enemy god, if at least 2 other gods are within 55 units of you, you gain 50% damage mitigation. So this is pretty cool. If you're a support, I expect you to pick this item a lot, because if you're like, say you're like an Athena, and you dash taunt, and then you hit them with anything, and there's a bunch of people around you, you gain damage mitigation off of all of them, and I don't know, you're just super tanky. I think this item is really good on paper, and it's super cheap. It's like 1900 gold or something. So, really good item. In theory, at least. Shogun's Kasari, 2400 gold, 60 prot, 20 MP5, 10% cooldown reduction, and 20% CCR. Pretty good stats. The prots are a little bit on the low side. Allies within 70 units of you gain 50% attack speed. This is a pretty cool item to help your team siege towers, like, or burn objectives. This attack speed aura can just shred stuff super quickly. So it's kind of like a hybrid offense, like, it's kind of a hybrid. Instead of you buying something like Voidstone that gives you power and your teammates pen, you could buy something like this, which is a more defensive option of that helps you like shred objectives harder. Pretty cool situational item. I'm going to definitely mess with this a lot. It could be really useful. Then the health tree. You have Stone of Gaia, remove the old passive. If you're hit by a knock-up or knockback, you're instead enveloped by the earth. Freaking role players, dude. Becoming CC immune for 1 second, regenerating 10% of your health over 5 seconds, so 2% a second. I think it's still probably a bad item. It is only really good if you're against like a Hebo or a Bacchus, and the only way their team kills you is if you get knocked up by that type of stuff. Could be okay, but generally I think it's probably bad. Shield of Regrowth is fucking nuts. Remove the physical protections, remove the physical power, added 400 health, so because they didn't mention the cost, I'm going to assume it's still like really cheap, which I think was like 1900 gold. And increase the CDR from 10% to 20%, so this item is pretty much nuts now, I think. If you're a healer, if you have any heal in your kit, this item is like almost a must-buy, I think. This item is really, really insane. Shoutouts to Met Yankee, the best Shield of Regrowth player in the world. And then Gauntlet of Thebes. Remove the old aura, new passive, magical, and physical protections of allies within 70 units are increased by 200. So this is a really cool option for supports because you'll have 400 health, and you get 20 of each prots off this item for your entire team. You'll definitely see supports pick this up. I think this also goes very well with, let me take you up to the item over here. I said this item will be insane. I think the Stone of Binding is also going to be really good, and the Gauntlet of Thebes complements this really well, because this item is really cost-efficient prots for yourself, and it gives you power and CDR. And then if you were to go like Watcher's Gift, Rangda's Mask, or whatever hell that's called, into Boots, into Stone of Binding, into into Gauntlet of Thebes rather, you have two really good starter items. You're getting movement speed, crowd control from all those items. You're getting prot from all those items. You get damage, and then on top of that, anyone you CC takes, they take more damage from your teammates because your teammates get 10 pen. And then on top of that, you get a 20 prot of each aura to your teammates. I think support items could be completely fucking nuts in Season 4, and it'll be definitely, if you're a support player, if I see you as a support player in my games on PTS, and you build Watchers into Boots, into Sovereignty, into Heartward, I'm going to find a way to get you banned, because there are so many good options that you could try, that you are just, like, you're just freaking wasting it, man. You're just wasting it, and I'll be pissed. Don't piss me off. You won't like me when I'm mad. God changes. So first up is Bay. Aphrodite is Bay. So what they meant to do with these changes is said General changed to a Guardian. They actually made a typo there, and instead they increased her health and her damage. Pretty good change, but she's still not a Guardian, so Bay is on hold for a bit. So beautiful for Apollo in Season 2, the start of Season 2. Apollo had his one changed so that his So Beautiful, it would hit the first minion, and then the second minion would take less damage than the first, and then third less than the second, so on and so forth. That really hurt his clear. They basically removed that and then punished him by changing the Across the Sky. I think this is the most well done change they did in like the entire patches in terms of general game design. Even though it doesn't seem like much, I think this is a really cool change because the game looks like it's going to go to an overall brawling meta where you want a lot of good early game clear, so they put Apollo to fit that, and then they reduce his global presence, and if you're fighting a lot early game, global lots are like completely fucking nuts, and nerfing it is a really good call by them. So good changes to Apollo. I think this is really well done. Bakasura. I wish Cyclone was here to tell you what he thinks of this, but I would assume it's pretty good. A little bit longer slow. I think the big thing here is if you're like in lane against a warrior, warriors aren't going to have beads, right? So the way they're going to walk out of your Baka slow or your like Baka regurgitate is they're just going to walk out of it. And if they walk out, the fact that they're still slowed helps them go for kills in lane a lot more. And then your cone attack is increased, so your cleave is better. This probably makes Baka a little bit better in Soul Lane. I don't know, I'll leave that to Cyclone, but if it is good in Soul Lane and Baka's really good in the meta, you can probably just hand the team Cyclone is on, which is Allegiance, the first seed, because we're playing Baka every game, boy. Let's go. I'm obviously trolling, by the way. Don't freaking quote me on that after we get 8th seed. So, Chang'e, Jade Rabbit, increases the speed to run to base from 1.7 player speed to 3.5, so they basically doubled the speed of the Rabbit. And then it decreases the trip time by about 10 seconds. Pretty damn good change. It makes her passive actually useful. The Moonlight Waltz decreases setup time, so the casting animation a little bit shorter. And then Moonflower Dance, this is her heal. It decreased the power of the heal, but increased the power of the damage, so a more offensive ability for Chang'e. This could make her a viable mid laner. Possibly. I thought when we were on Envy and we had Kiki as our mid laner, we actually thought Chang'e was a really good mid laner. We used to run it with Naja, and we actually only lost one game with it that split. We were like 3-1 or something with it, 3-1, 4-1. And the only game we lost was to Soar at our group stage, where all of us played like complete shit. So I don't even know if that's like a good example of the god. But I don't know. She could be pretty good. It takes a like unique player to player. Kiki used to be really insane at Chang'e. I don't know if there's any mid laners with her in her god pool, but she could be pretty good. Chronos increased his base movement speed by 5. And then you'll see this change on pretty much every AD carry that had it. No more Fatalis effects in kit, so Chronos's got removed. Later on you'll see Soul's got removed and Jingwei's got removed, spoiler alerts, but basically fuck Fatalis effects in kit. It is so annoying to play against, and it is generally overpowered. You'll see Chronos used more as a mage now, I think. He can still be a good AD carry. but he's a little more valuable as maybe a mid laner than he used to be. He was okay as a mid laner, but he's still alive. He's not dead, but he's a little bit worse. You won't see Emily to frag every single game at Worlds with him anymore, I don't think. Erlang Shen. This ability no longer cripples. He is dead. Rest in peace. Can we all get some Bible thumbs or not like this in chat? This just hurts the gods so much for obvious reasons. Like, it basically, just having a root on it is just such a weak CC. I don't know. If he's good, it's because he just has really good auto attack damage and stuff like that, and his 3 is really good. This hurts his kit so much. Like, the reason this god was even brought to support was because he had a root pin that could set people up, or like a root cripple that could set people up, and a root cripple from long range is basically a stun. So, I don't know, makes him so much worse, feels bad. Freya, decreased base damage on her ult. This ultimate was stupid because it is a ult that at level 5 does more damage than a Kraken that makes you completely immune during the duration of it as you can move in the air. So I shouldn't have to explain why changing the power level of this ult is a good idea. Guan Yu decreased his healing and decreased the boosted healing, so makes him overall a worse healer. Pretty big changes, you know, 70 health, anywhere from 35 to 70 health is actually a really big deal. I think Guan was like one of the healers in the game that actually didn't feel overpowered because his out of combat healing was so weak, because he would only be healing for 185, whereas most healers are healing for upwards of like 300 to 400. Kind of a tiny nerf to Guan. It does add up because in combat you can get like 5 heals off in a fight, so this 35 difference adds up to like the amount of an entire heal. So, I don't know. A little bit worse. Is Erlang losing the Fatalis effect on his 3? No, he is one of the only gods who actually kept it, which is an interesting design decision. Holy crap, chat. I would have rather them keep the consistency of the Fatalis effect on Erlang and take that away and then keep his pin. I think that would have been a better change that goes along with the theme that they have in these patch notes, so a little bit odd that they did that to Erlang. Warrior's Will, which is his dash, decrease the mana cost. That's good. It helps Guan out a lot, actually. And then the slow is reduced. Pretty much just double tiny nerfs to Guan, and then his ult increase the base damage. Overall, I think Guan is a lot worse because of this. The problem here is Guan Yu from a support role, he doesn't like, his healing was his biggest benefit, and his numbers on his heal got nerfed, and he doesn't have CC that's as good as other gods, and now if you're looking to put him in a soul lane role, he can't lane as well because his sustain is worse. I don't know, overall I think Guan Yu is just worse, which kind of sucks. I guess this is what Cyclone gets for going like 5-1 against Energy, even though we lost with Guan. I don't even want to read this shit. Hell, more base health. Not a fan. I will say the way they changed this god around is a lot more fun to play with and against than previous versions of Hell, because she has an actual skill cap now. It's not just brainless spamming of her heal. So, Dark Stance, the ability goes through targets, so it goes through minions, is what this means. So this is Hell's 1, the line skill shot. So if you're in lane, if you're in mid lane, you will be able to clear the wave by having your 1 and like 3 in the wave and 1 in all 6 creeps, where usually you could only deal damage to 3 creeps with your 1. So helps her clear a lot. It also could help you cleave down enemies. Like if you're at mid harpies and people are walking into you while you're hitting the harpies, you can throw the ability through the harpies, secure the harpies, and poke them. A lot of cool stuff you can do with it, just a general buff.
Then for the light stance, it doesn't hit or deal damage to enemies. It is a skill shot heal, which is really cool. It now changes this from a basically leech ability where you hit an enemy, deal damage to them, heal yourself, to you heal allies with it. So her healing is now more skill shot oriented for allies, which helps her a lot. I don't like this change, the CC immunity on the cleanse. I think like 1.25 was probably fine. 1.5 maybe a little bit too strong, but okay, just a buff to her too. And then the Riposte / Inspire. This ability now heals for it ticks instead of being a burst heal. And then I'll go over the stance as well. MP5 is increased for both stances. Or no, it applies to both stances, but it's decreased, sorry. And then the protections in the light stance are now added. So I think Hela is going to be really strong. I would have liked them to hold back on some of these changes, maybe. And for example, only put in like the skill shot and maybe a little bit of the protections. Or actually, probably the skill shot and the tick on the heal, and see how that does before you add protections. I think I'm most scared of the protections. I think the healing changes on her 1 and her 3 were enough to make Hel good and like a viable god, and then the 2 and the passive are going to make her overstated. Or the 2 and the alt, I guess, but it's like a passive alt, but whatever. I think these make her overstated and probably make her too strong, but I like the way they did the rest of the kit. When I heard that Hel was getting changed, I was like really skeptical of it and was going to hate it, but they couldn't have done it much better than this, so this is really good design from Hi-Rez. I just question the protections, probably is my only problem with it. Could be too strong. Hercules. Strength from pain. Every time Hercules takes damage from gods, he gains 5 power plus 1 multiplied by your level, which means if you're level 20, you get 20 power plus 5, which is 25. This stacks up to 3 times, which means 25 times 3 is 75 power, which means Herc does a fuck ton of damage without building any, which is pretty good. That's what he should do. He doesn't really have any advantage over warriors right now, and I think making him a damaging ability combo warrior that can counter engage and like turn fights on people is pretty cool. So I don't know, could be a cool god. It's hard to say whether gods like I guess before I go like forward, it's hard to say whether gods who are getting changed drastically, like with their passives and stuff, like Hel and Herc will be good, because the entire game around them is changing. So it's hard to say whether they're viable in the meta. But in terms of the numbers and the way their kits work, they look like they're going to be really, really, really strong. So, Earthbreaker decreased his mana cost because he had mana problems a little bit. New Mitigate Wounds. When activated, Hercules heals himself instantly and then heals himself again over the next 5 seconds. This is really good for laning phase. A lot of warriors in lane for solo have instant healing. Or just like, I guess proactive healing instead of reactive. You know, Chalk can heal and then go contest the wave, whereas Herc has to walk up to the wave and then pop his 3, and then if you damage into him, he gets some sustain, whereas other warriors can just, you know, just heal up out of nothing, you know, Chalk and Ama and Guan, all that type of stuff. And then it also gives him bonus magical and physical protections during the duration, so Herc does a lot more damage and does receive a lot more protections. He should be a lot better now. The problem with Herc will still be that if you choose to use his 3, like, if you keep walking up to every lane or every wave and you pop his 3 to get a heal and then you combo the wave to clear it, you're really susceptible to ganks, which was Herc's previous problem. But now you can turn ganks a lot harder because you have prots on your 3 and your passive makes you able to one-shot people with like your alt and your 1. So interesting changes. Humbots basically brought his damage up at the cost of reducing his slow. This is just a buff to Humbots because slows DR when they're above 40%. So this buff is, or this nerf is like hardly noticeable, and a damage buff like this helps his clear a lot. It helps him kill people in fights, obviously. So pretty good changes. Jingwei, thank God she's getting nerfed. I would have liked to see her put even more deep down than 6 feet under, but decreased basic movement speed, decreased her health scaling, decrease the duration of her passive, and no longer a Fatalis effect. Fuck this god. Hater. Khepri, pretty interesting changes. They increase the cooldown of his ult, which is actually what they should have done a long time ago when Khepri was introduced, instead of shredding all the stats from the rest of his kit. I think this was the way to go. It's a pretty good change, and then they give him a little bit of damage, so you're going to see Khepri be a little more aggressive. He's a little more offensive oriented, and he pays for it by not being able to peel as hard because his ult is on a longer cooldown. So, whatever. Medusa. This is a really cool change. I think the ult is the main one. The healing reduction just at all ranks applying is really good if Dual Lane does come back and you're actually 2v2ing. When I was on Eager in Season 2 and we used to scrim against AFK, it was, Allied used to play Medusa all day. This god used to be nuts, and if I ever tried to play Sylvanas against them, they would run Sobek Medusa, and they would have basically, they would have like 60% healing reduction in lane at level 1 between Sobek and Medusa, and they would just double dash me and fuck my shit up. And now that's even stronger, so you could see Medusa as a good counter pick to immobile healers like Sylvanas, maybe even Terra. Even though Terra's not really immobile. And then Petrify, her ult does more damage if they don't look away, or if they don't look away from it. Or no, if they do look away from it, why am I a bot? Does more damage, good change. Naja, increase the cooldown of Ring Toss. This brings Naja's clear down a little bit, and also brings down the poke, and decrease the cooldown on the Flaming Spear to decrease the cooldown as you rank it up, which probably incentivizes you to... This basically means if you were maxing Sash, you probably max your 2 now, because your heal is, and your steroid is on a lower cooldown, and your Sash is on the same cooldown anyways, so... Interesting Naja changes, just switches up the playstyle just a little bit. Nike decreased the bonus power from her passive by 2% for each level, basically by just 2% across the board. Rend, the scaling is decreased by 10%, but because this ability hits 2 or 3 times, it's actually a 20 or 30% scaling reduction. And then Sentinel of Zeus is her ultimate, decrease the physical power scaling from 80 to 70. I think they could have made a better nerf here by adjusting the slow or the shield on the ult, but I guess that is kind of the trademark of her kit, so it makes sense. Yeah, pretty good change to Nike. She might still be pretty good, but not sure. Nuwa made her clay soldiers deal magical instead of physical damage, just good quality of life change. Ra made his heal do tick for less and decrease the scaling on the heal, so overall he heals less, but he gives his teammates protections when they're in the heal. 30 prot seems like a lot, and giving protections to healers seems to be a theme. They also did it to Aphrodite. She gains protections based on people around her for herself. Hel gains protections for herself based on what stance she's in. And Ra gives protections to all of his allies, which, if you notice, the theme compared to the other two is way stronger, and the only real downside is you have to stand inside of the heal the entire duration to get the benefit of it. I think this is a little too strong, but not sure. Rama increased the cooldown of his role. He was one of the best hunters all Season 3. Good to take his power level down a little bit. Serket increased the damage from consuming 2 poisons and 3 poisons, basically 5% additional damage on her passive. Makes her a lot better. I don't know if she's completely viable, but this is good because healers are countered by Serket for the most part, and Serket being able to shred them down a little bit better allows her to be the counter pick that she needs to be, so pretty good change. Skadi decreased Caldier's basic attack damage, good because that was just brainless damage that you could get off that is not fun to play against, and increased the movement speed, good changes to Skadi, probably a lot better now, I would guess. 10% scaling is probably not as valuable as 15%, but you should ask T-Money about that, not me. Soul, same consistency, no basic attack movement penalty reduction, so no Fatalis effect, but gave her a little more movement speed in her 3. Wukong, his passive was previously, if you are at or below 35% health, you gain protections and crit chance. Now you gain from 40% health, so a larger threshold, you gain protections and physical power, and he does more damage with his ult. So Wukong just flat out buff a lot better because of that. He actually has a good passive you can take advantage of. So pretty cool. I don't understand this one. Wind Siphon increased physical damage scaling from 25 to 60%. Because that damage applies 3 times, that's just like a gigantic... Wait, that is the 1, right? I think it's the 1. If it's the 2 and not the 1, then maybe it's a little different. I actually have no idea. I think it actually is the 2 now that I think of it. But anyways, giving Susano more damage, I don't know if that was needed. And either way, like, he has no skill shots in his kit, so it's like guaranteed damage. I don't know, not a fan of that, but whatever. They changed a tooltip, and then changed the physical, just basically tooltip update here. And then now deals bonus damage longer charges in addition to the base damage, maxing out at 100 damage at all ranks. Susano's just a lot better now. It's a 2, yeah, okay, that's what I thought. Sorry, Stormcott is the 1. Yeah, that's correct. Okay, makes sense. Still more guaranteed bonus damage, not a fan. I think Susano was really frustrating to play against upon his release because he was so mobile that you couldn't punish him for poking, and he had 0 skill shots, so he could just walk up to you and poke the hell out of you and deal a ton of guaranteed damage. He looks like he'll be something similar now, so he's just really strong. Good change to Sylvanas, actually. They reduced the strength of his healing, and in return made him get a little more value out of his root because he shreds protections with his root. Somebody mentioned this in my chat when we were actually watching the patch notes, was that if there was ever an argument between maxing your 1 and your 3, you definitely do the 1 now. And that is 100% true. You may even have games where you max the 1 over the 2. I doubt it because the heal is really good. But yeah, basically the root is just insane now. They already buffed the damage. I actually think I probably will try maxing the 1 for a while because it has like 240 base damage at like level 9 when you get that online. Like 240 base damage with 25 prot shred sounds pretty freaking insane. So you'll see Sylvanas be played a lot more aggressively. Terra, Force of Nature, increased the damage of her 1 by 40 at the highest rank, and decreased the base healing, so made her less healer, more in-your-face damage, and then nerfed the alt heal by 200. Pretty good change. I think there was maybe better things to change about Terra on the alt, but the other 2 changes are really good. Glyph of Pain on Thoth. Actually, I guess I should say the Evade and Punish. No longer slows enemies hit by it, now stuns enemies. I was going to save that for last, but because this is the obvious one you're going to read, this is fucking nuts. This makes Thoth absolutely one of the top mages, I think. If the meta fits him, if his early clear is good enough, he's definitely one of the top mages. Increases his utility off of his 3, basically. And then Final Judgment decreases the base damage, so less one-shotting, and decreases the scaling, and increases the cooldown. So Thoth is less of a one-shot alt bot, and more of a well-rounded kit. And that's the end of the patch notes. So yeah,